Jen Recla, welcome to the conversation today.
Thank you so much for having me.
It is a real pleasure to be with you. You're joining us from Colorado. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. We were just chatting about the beautiful fall weather and how much we love it. And so we're
Yep.
both enjoying a lot of that at the moment. Today, we're going to be talking about leading with curiosity. This is a topic I really love because I think the most successful leaders are those that have, intellectual humility, which lends itself to curiosity, right? Asking questions, experimentation, all of these sorts of things. And so we're going to explore and unpack this together today. As we get started, I wanted to share Jen's bio with everybody. As a leadership coach, trainer, outdoor enthusiast, and many other aspects of her life, Jen Recla is on a mission to awaken passion, joy, and the spirit of adventure in every professional endeavor. With over 15 years of organizational development experience in leadership, coaching, and mentoring, she specializes in creating growth experiences that inspire and equip individuals and teams to maximize their value and impact. She leverages her top Gallup strengths of woo, maximizer, communication, futurist, and arranger to make learning fun, bringing knowledge to others, and inspiring individuals to reach their full potential. I love everything about that. So much more I could say about your accomplishments and your background, but I'm going to pause. Anything you would like to highlight before we dive on in?
I always like to highlight, and I think it's in my bio that my top values are fun and adventure. And I like to bring them to every experience that I have. So I'm hoping to have a very fun, adventurous conversation with you today.
I like that fun and adventure, and I think it lends itself to curiosity quite well, right? When I
Yeah.
think about curious, I think about little kids. I think
Hmm.
about like I have six kids. They're all my youngest is 12, so they're all getting a little bit older. I'm kind of past that little kid stage, but yeah, I mean when kids are young, they're curious and they ask a gazillion questions. They're exploring everything from the texture of things and they put everything in their mouth to, just everything, right? And that level of curiosity has with it, fun, imagination, and those sorts of elements. And at some point, we start to kind of put that aside. I don't know if it's the school system, just society as a whole, norms and values and things like that that get kind of imposed on people. But ultimately, we all kind of quote unquote grow up. We stop being so curious, a lot of us.
Yeah.
We stop having so much fun and we stop asking so many questions. And I think the world needs more questions. The world needs more curiosity. And I think especially in this complex time, hyper competitive global market, disruption left and right, just the whole shifting nature of work, everything that's going on around us, we need leaders who have that curiosity, who
Yeah.
ask the questions, who inspire that in their team.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was just thinking about how right that is that we lose that sense of curiosity. And why do we lose that sense of curiosity? And it got me thinking about how shame starts to
Mm,
come into our lives. And we stop being curious because we don't want to look bad. We don't want to look foolish for asking the question. And kids don't really care about that. I have little kids too. I have a 8-year-old son and I have a 10-year-old daughter, and they are just right in the middle of all the curiosity, asking tons of questions. And I do see in my daughter, she's starting with some of that shame or embarrassment and holding back at times. And I want her to keep holding on to that because when you look at things with the lens of a child, it just opens up this whole world of possibilities that we stifle when we don't lead with curiosity.
yeah, and it's not like people are sitting around thinking, how do I stifle all of the fun and curiosity and
Right.
inquisitiveness out of people? Like nobody wants
Right.
that, right? But it just kind of it does happen. And
Yeah.
again, that's a bigger topic for another day, like all the reasons behind that. And I think it's complex,
Hmm.
but the reality is it happens, right? And then as we get older, there are the quote unquote creatives, the creative types, and as society we tend to label, put that label on a very small subset of the population, you know, people who are musicians or artists in some physical kind of medium or things like that. But the reality is all of us can be artistic and creative and innovative in our own
Hmm.
ways. And it doesn't have to involve, art, dance, music, whatever, the things that we typically label as those things that are creative. And so we have this big disconnect between, how we are when we're young, and then, the shame elements that build
Mm,
in, the social pressures that build in, all that kind of stuff. And then just the way we frame it in our heads, I think we do ourselves a huge disservice as adults, because we're like, oh, I'm not creative. That's for that person over there. And then we
mm,
don't exercise the muscle of creativity and asking questions.
yeah. I there's a book that I always recommend to leaders that I work with. It's called Multipliers. I don't know if you've ever heard of
Yeah.
it by Liz Wiseman. And I read it a few years back, and it was just so eye-opening to me, all of the ways that we accidentally diminish others. And there is an experiment I tried out with my kids from the book. Um, I think I don't remember what the story behind it was, but Liz Wiseman, it was recommended to her to spend a whole evening just asking questions. And so I said, "Oh, I'm going to try this with my kids." So I pick them up from daycare, and that's it. I'm just going to communicate with them in questions the rest of the evening. Number one, it is really hard to only dialogue in questions. But the second thing that happened was I had one of the best conversations with my daughter. I think at the time she might have been 7 or 8. And we talked about friendship and what it really means to be a friend, what friendship means to her. And I remember the next day when I picked her up from daycare, she said to me, "What questions do you have for me today?"
I
It
love
was just so
that.
cute, right? And it really hit home for me to take a step back more, to listen more, to ask more questions, and not of just of my kids. I was leading a team at the time as well, but I need to not be the person that's talking so much. I need to not be the person that's coming up with the ideas and problem solving because I'm doing a disservice to the rest of the team who has great ideas, who want to grow and learn. And I'm taking that away from them when I don't lead with curiosity.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to drill in on what that means, leading with curiosity. I think we're getting a feeling for it.
Yeah.
But I love the conversation driven only by questions. Someone, I can't remember who it was, but they mentioned, you sit down at the dinner table at night and you ask your kids, how was school today? What did you learn
Mm-hmm.
today? Things like that. And someone suggested, instead of asking, what did you learn today? Ask, what questions did you ask today? Um,
I
it
love that.
obviously that leads to that topic of learning. It'll probably
Hmm.
lead to them explaining the types of things they learned that day. But it's a powerful way to frame it, right? That you're just encourage like, because I think whether it's shame based or whatever, like we at some point we start to feel like it's not okay to ask questions. Um,
Yeah.
and so, like, as a parent, I want my kids to ask questions, and that's
Yeah.
even if it's uncomfortable to other people. Like sometimes people don't like having questions asked of them. They don't like answering questions, and I think students recognize that. And so, some continue to, but a lot kind of, self-censor quite a bit. And so encouraging that amongst my kids has been, a priority. I want my kids to be
Mm-hmm.
inquisitive. I want them to ask lots of questions and to always be curious and to not think that they have it all figured out. And let them know that I don't have it all figured out. Like,
Right?
just because I'm in my mid 40s, I've lived a decent amount of life at this point. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, Like I don't know,
Yeah.
like the vast majority of things I know almost nothing about. And so just helping to model that for my kids has been powerful, and to try to do the same for teams. And like you said, I think we inadvertently stifle um that inquisitiveness, that curiosity, and that
Mm.
creativity, with others around us, just because we don't ask enough questions, because we don't listen enough, and we just kind of, it's like the classic, I mean, it's a little bit of a gendered thing, and I'm not sure that's always accurate, but like the classic gendered kind of trope of the woman going to her husband and wanting to talk about her day and explaining the problems, and then the
Mm.
husband trying to insert,
Fix
you
it.
know, fix it and insert answers to all the things she's saying. And she doesn't want that. She just wants
Yeah.
to have someone to listen and to validate and to just be with, and I think there's a lot of truth in that for everybody. Like we all could do better at that.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's definitely the scary factor of asking questions, right? Because what if somebody diminishes my idea or pops my balloon, or they look at me like that's a really stupid question? There's this other piece of storytelling. Humans are really good at coming to conclusions, making judgments, telling our own stories. And so we think we already know the answer and we walk in with that judgment. And so we don't get curious. We might get furious. Or I was, again, having a conversation with my daughter in the car about some things that were happening in her gymnastics class and really trying to encourage her to get curious because she had all of these stories in her head about the way people were treating her and what they were thinking without really knowing. And we ended up having a really good conversation. But how many times do we do that as leaders too?
Mm.
Right? We get some feedback or we observe something, we see something, we hear something. And before even talking to the person, we fit in the missing pieces of the puzzle. And we have our story, we have our conclusion, we come back to that person with that conclusion or that judgment call, and we're not right, or they automatically go on the defensive. We don't have a productive conversation, and then we get frustrated because there's this conflict and it's just like this downward spiral that continues. So leading with
Yeah.
curiosity is really not stepping in with those stories. It's you're not going to get rid of them completely, but hold on to those stories as hypotheses,
Mm.
knowing all the answers that you really want to understand if the story you're telling yourself is true or not. So when you're digging into curiosity, it's about understanding the other person's perspective. It's about having a two-way, bi-directional dialogue with the other individual and making them feel valued and heard. Because that's what you want to get to with your employees, that your team members. You want them to feel valued and heard because when they feel valued and heard, they're going to give you their best.
Yeah, and whether it's intentional or not, if you do other things to undermine that, right, then
Yeah.
people are going to disengage, and that's where you
Yes.
get, the quiet quittings and all the quiet, things that people were talking about there a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is there's a whole bunch of reasons why people disengage,
Mm-hmm.
why they
Mm-hmm.
mentally check out, or they don't, they kind of do the bare minimum, and they don't, you know, really put their all into it anymore. And frankly, I can't blame people. I mean, it's not smart. Like if you want to be successful in your job and in your career, you should really, try to push back on that tendency.
Mm-hmm.
But it's completely understandable why people do that. Because there's
Yeah.
only so many times you're gonna like put yourself out there with a leader, and then if they kind of shut you down every time, or in some way, impose this false narrative onto you, then you don't feel like it's safe anymore.
Right.
And then at that point you just kind of hunker down, and you're like, I'm just gonna, do whatever I have to do, and I'm gonna stop putting myself out there. I'm gonna stop
Yep.
asking questions. I'm gonna stop giving ideas. I'm gonna just just hunker down. And I suppose there's a time and a place for that, but as a whole, like if that's the type of organization we're leading, um, creativity is out the window, innovation is
Mm-hmm.
out the window, and we're
Mm-hmm.
just going to totally stagnate.
Yeah, well, that's where that quiet quitting comes into place. And then there's this image, in engagement, there's an employee engagement image I've seen where it's a bicycle and there's lots of wheels on the bicycle, and you have all of these people that are trying to get the bicycle forward, but then you have one or two people at the back that are
Yeah,
driving the bicycle in the wrong way. Right. Or there's people in a boat and they're trying to take the water out of the boat while the person in the back is poking holes in the boat, right? So, one or two people that are quietly quitting or even actively disengaged can bring down an entire team. And that is again another opportunity to really get curious, to figure out what's going on here. Is it that perhaps their strengths are not aligned with the work that they're doing? Is there something else that's going on outside of work? Could it be me? right? Am I doing something or not doing something? Am I actively seeking feedback from people so that I'm continuously working on myself? Because we're all works in progress. There is no arrival to being the best leader out there. There's always space to get a little bit better every day. And so I think that is another piece of leading with curiosity. It's always asking, how can I get a little bit better? How can I do a little bit better? How can I really create the best environment for the people on my team to grow and thrive?
Yeah, and you referred to it earlier as having a hypothesis. So like I love
Yeah.
that mindset, like a the scientific method mindset of let's of experimentation, formulate a
Yes.
hypothesis. It's human nature. We're all going to do it. So like there's no way around that. So let's not pretend like we're not going to draw conclusions from from limited
Right.
information. Let's just
Yeah.
understand what it for what it is. It's information. It's a conclusion drawn from limited information, and while that based on past experience, and it may bear out. Like, we may have intuition that, has served us well in the past, and we may have seen something, that matches up with what we have observed today, and so we think we know, and it may pan out the way we think, but so
Hmm.
often it doesn't, or at least there's nuance to it that maybe
Yeah.
we weren't attributing to it. And so just recognize that, yeah, we all do that. It's human nature, but we're going to have an innovation mindset. We're going to have an experimentation mindset. We're going to hypothesize. And that just means that we're willing to set our conclusion aside once we get more information.
Yeah.
And that's a really mature way to go about life. You know, it's kind of funny in society today, we're so polarized, like politically, socially, economically, like
Mm-hmm.
there's so much divisiveness. And I'm like, man, if people could just be curious and not think that they have everything all figured
No.
out all the time, and just be open to new information, that may confirm what they already think they know, or it may disconfirm and might help reshape what they think they know. Man, life would be so much better for so
No.
many people. And the same thing happens in organizations. People really disengage if they feel like they've been mislabeled, if they feel like they have not
Hmm.
been understood, especially when their intentions are good, even if they know they fumbled something, even if they know they messed
Yeah.
up, but their intentions were good, and now they're being, having all these negative things attached to them. That's one of the quickest surefire ways for that person to be exiting, or in some cases
Yeah.
even worse, to stick around and
Hmm.
but do it in a way where they're just not contributing, or they're actually pulling against the stream of what you're trying to accomplish.
Right. There's a book that I read, another book. I love books. There's another book I read by the Arbinger Institute. It's actually a series, but it's all centered around the outward mindset, which I don't know if you've heard of that concept before,
Mhm.
but the concept of an outward mindset is when we are in an outward mindset, we see the humanity in others. We see people as people. When we're in an inward mindset, we see people as objects and barriers. They are in our way. So, a great example of that is you're driving, you're in traffic, you see that person that's in the lane that's about to close, and they're just trying to get right in front of you. So, you scoot up so that they can't get in front of you. That we are in an inward mindset, right? We are not thinking about that that person might be running to an appointment or
Mhm.
have something that's going on that's really stressful for them. We're thinking about, no, 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 you didn't follow the rules. You need to get behind me. We're really looking at them as a barrier in our way. But when we take a step back to say, do I think that this person is doing the best they can? I mean, they're trying to get to work like I am, or they're trying to get to their lunch date, or they're trying to get to, their kids' practice. Who knows what's going on? But if I just take a step back and look at that person as a human, I can let them get in front of me. It is not the end of the world. So
just,
I think
just
that,
yeah, just
yeah,
like,
go ahead.
sometimes if I'm in a gripey mood, right, I'll kind of either say out loud if I'm in the car by myself, or under my breath if there's other people in the car and I don't really want
Yeah.
them to hear. Then, I'll grumble, oh, like, good for you. Now you're going to get there 5 seconds faster, And I'm like, so I'll say that to other people, but I'm like, how often do I do things that to get me there 5 seconds faster? Obviously, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It just does not
Yeah.
matter. Yet yet we tend to do that. So yeah, recognizing the humanity in other people and recognizing that almost always, not always, but almost always, people really don't have bad intentions. Um,
Yes.
and I was with the driving example, again, sometimes if I'm not in the best of moods, I might gripe a little bit about something someone does. They cut me
Hmm.
off, they whatever, they do something dumb or whatever, right? Um, but I always feel humbled by the next time I do something dumb. Like, and it never is intentional. Like I
Hmm.
do not want to be an asshole driver on the road.
Right.
And so, but every now and then I'll do something where I'm not paying enough attention. I'll cut someone off, or
Hmm.
I'll be at a four-way stop and I go when it's not my turn, or like something like that. And then I'm like, I'm that guy now. But it wasn't intentional. And so if it wasn't intentional for
Hmm.
me, probably wasn't intentional for any of those other people
Yeah.
either.
Yeah, I mean, it's just we really are, we're all just trying the best that we can. I lean into that belief that we have different backgrounds, we have access to different resources. So given that, we really are, we don't wake up in the morning. I think most people don't wake up in the morning and think, whose day could I ruin today? Right? They really, really do want to try, but we get in our own way. Our ego gets in our way as well. The last organization that I worked with many years ago when I started, I remember being so excited and I really wanted to prove myself. And I had all of these ideas. And I went into that first team meeting and shared a bunch of those ideas. And the team was like, it sounds like you don't think we're doing a good job. I was like, oh, ego. Trying to prove myself. This is not helping. I really need to be focusing on getting a sense of the current state, being curious, asking questions, connection, building relationships, building trust. And so that, thank goodness that person said that because it was a wake up call for me to just slow down and listen and ask questions. And it was a moment that really connected us as a team. And it was just me not leading with curiosity to start with. And so that's something that I've held on to in everything I do. I'm not perfect. I still make mistakes, but I really do try to take a step back and say, what questions should I be asking in this moment? I don't have all of the information. What do I need to know to be able to move forward? And let's really listen, genuinely listen to what the other person has to say.
Yeah. Well, I love that humility that you were able to take that feedback and build from it and build those relationships. To flip the coin a little bit,
Hmm.
also ego on their side, right? Like they're like, "What? You don't think we know what we're doing?" Blah blah
Right.
blah. Like that, it's a false narrative both ways, right? Like,
Sure.
and you genuinely wanted to help, um, and they didn't hear. It sounds like they didn't really hear what you were suggesting, or maybe you had like the next great idea that they shut
Hmm.
down simply because they weren't open to it. And so it really does go both ways. And as a
It
leader,
does.
that's our job, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we have to do in that kind of an environment is to pull the young you aside, and say, hey, thank you for all the input. Just so you know, blah blah blah. Like help better understand how to navigate that for the team. Like let's listen to this person and what they have to contribute because there may be something great here. And I think of like a Phil Jackson, basketball coach
Mm.
with the Bulls and the Lakers, won a gazillion championships. He was the master Zen coach, right? Like he was the one that was always able to take the egos from all the superstars, the Michael Jordans, the
Hmm.
Kobe Bryants, all of them, and mesh a team, who can have a common vision, common goal, and move to forward together. And it's not like he beat the ego out of those people.
Hmm.
Michael Jordan's one of the, most driven, ego-centered people there is, but he's successful. You can't argue it.
Yeah.
And so finding a way, like as a curious leader, we can see that happening and we can create an environment where we can actually leverage it, right? And
Yeah.
help everyone know that this truly is a safe place. We're not going to shut people down because they're new. We're also not going to, come in and try to shake everything up like everything that they were doing before I showed up, before I came was
Right.
wrong. Like we're
Right.
gonna work together and great things can come up from that.
Yeah. I agree. That collaboration piece, right? A curiosity creates an environment where people want to collaborate. more. They want to partner more. They want to work together. And that's what you're trying to cultivate as a leader.
Absolutely. Well, this has just been a fantastic conversation. We've only scratched the surface. There's so much more, but I know at the time I need to let you go here in a minute. Before we wrap things up, I just want to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, and then give us the final word for today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a website, jenrecla.com, JenRecla.com. You can connect with me there. I've got a free masterclass that you can download all about leadership. And then I also am very active on LinkedIn. So follow me, Jennifer Recla, on LinkedIn. I talk about leading with curiosity and lots of other leadership development and team development topics. And I just love this topic. It is something that when all else fails, just start with curiosity.
I love it. When all else fails, ask more questions,
Yes.
remain curious. Thank you, Jen. It's been a real pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out to get connected, find out more about what Jen can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week.